वेलकम टू मेन स्ट्रीम विद हरप्रीत सिंह तूर। आप सब ਨੂੰ ਪਿਆਰ ਭਰੀ ਸਤਿ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ, ਨਮਸਕਾਰ, ਆਦਾਬ and shalom. You know, there is always something to talk about, something new, something happens, and I'm always searching for something which is really good, you know, not just for us as Americans, but for the rest of the world, because America being at the forefront for so long, and now we have somebody who is at the helm of the affairs, which actually does not care about what happens to Americans, what happens to the rest of the world. The only thing he cares about is how to stay in power. And for that, he will do anything. But we have a guest, you know, who actually has to leave a bit early. So he will not be with us for the whole show. We will talk about all these things after our guest leaves. But let's welcome our guest. He has been on the show before, and he has this his own way of looking at the things because he was born here, he grew up here, whereas I'm an immigrant, and doesn't matter how much you try to learn, you never learn enough. So let me bring on Charlie Zelban, who is going to be our guest for that today. Thanks, Charlie. Thanks for coming in at such a short notice.
My pleasure.
Okay, let's talk about, you know, three things which I want to talk about immediately. One is, what was behind Trump's mind when he started Iran war? And I know it was started at the behest of Bibi Netanyahu. Majority of the people know that Bibi actually wanted this thing to happen way back, but it never happened. But now it happened because apparently Bibi saw that Pete Hegseth is just another you know, person who cannot think anything because he is an alcoholic. And Trump was always wanted to show a macho man being someone that I am the one, and add that to that the Venezuela picking up Maduro and nothing happened there. Maybe that emboldened him also. So in a nutshell, those are my questions. What do you have to talk about on that?
Well, it won't be in a nutshell, but I have, I don't disagree with your point of view about the point of view that Bibi Netanyahu had an influence on the decision, because it's Bibi Netanyahu's self-interest, not necessarily the best interest of for Israel, the country, and the situation in the Middle East. But there's another point that I think that is overlooked, is what influence did Putin have over the decision to bomb Iraq? And because at that moment in time in February, from my reading, Russia was having major economic problems. And oil was down below $60 a barrel, and they couldn't break even. So what's the best way of raising the price of oil? It's to start a war right where the source of most of the oil is coming from.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, most people ignore that because, you know, it's become sort of accepted that it was the influence of Bibi Netanyahu. But Iran and Russia have an alliance. Now, maybe they didn't think that, you know, Trump would do as much damage as they did, but Trump and Putin are definitely have their own kind of personal agenda going on. And
they are buddies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's hard to separate this thought that, hey, what's the best way to raise the price of oil? You know, and you know, I don't think in terms of what transpired since the end of February to now, I don't think Russia expected the Ukraine Ukraine to have developed all their drones that they have, and that they would destroy the infrastructure of their oil industry in Russia, which is preventing them from capitalizing on the higher price of oil. But, I can see how that all could have transpired. I mean, I have read that that Trump and Netanyahu had expected that there would have been a moderate in place to come in and help take over the Iranian government, but they killed everybody. So that put, that whole idea that they had uh, went away. And also, you have to look at the fact that Trump, as the head of the military, and Hexas, as the defense secretary, they did not plan anything.
War
Everything was
secretary, let me correct you. He is a secretary of war, not secretary of defense,
no. He's
as per.
Secretary of Defense. I will never say Secretary of War. It's
I know, I
not a
know.
legal position.
I'm
So
just saying as a joke because Congress has the authority to change it, not the president. So go ahead.
yeah. So, and one of the things that Trump's regime tries to do is overwhelm us with all sorts of information and distractions to say where they actually what to cover what they're actually doing. And I think they know either by design or by instinct that the more they overwhelm people, the more discouraged people get, and that suits whatever plans that they have. So they keep pumping out more and more stuff, so that they can try to avoid um, the repercussions of the public focusing on a particular item and causing problems for what their agenda is.
So now there is one factor definitely which came out that even though Trump has been looking to get out of this for last couple of weeks, maybe couple of months, but Iran does not want him to get out and they won't let him get out. And in the meantime, US does not have enough stockpiles of anti-ballistic missile, when you talk about, the shields. And Iran also was able to literally struck the bases, US bases in Middle East countries, where now US actually is thinking whether to repair them because it is too expensive or just shut down some of them. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yes, the
Yeah.
bases, the U.S. bases.
Yeah.
And why are they in that shape? It's because Russia shared the information of their locations with Iran. That's why, so, and what are we actually trying to punish Russia? I don't see any evidence of that.
No, that will not happen because whatever Putin has on Trump, Trump will never go against Putin and Russia. Look at what happened with Ukraine. He promised to give patriotic missiles, and apparently he got a call from Putin. Hey, what are you doing, man? And then he decided not to do it. So in the meantime, I personally, and I'm pretty sure you will agree with me, we got to give a credit to Ukrainians, where everybody thought that within a week, maybe 2 weeks, the whole thing will be over. Now it is into the 4th year, right?
Right.
So that's one issue. Now the other issue is because the elections are happening in Israel. Do you really think out of this war, Bibi would gain anything, or he may end up losing because his opponent actually is the guy who at one point led the Israel army into Gaza?
I have not. I hear some things, I read some things about the upcoming election in Israel. I mean, Netanyahu is not in great shape politically, but it's really hard to read. I don't know the nuances. I mean, they are a democratic country, and there are a lot of different parties, and their system, which is the way most of the rest of the world is, which is parliamentary, as opposed to our system, that if they get enough, if he can pull together a coalition with enough seats, then he'll still remain in power. In my understanding, he's trying to avoid, he wants them to remain in power so he doesn't have to face their judicial system, similar to what Trump has done. I mean, if just to circle, to divert for a moment, Trump is scurrying around trying to manipulate the election because he's worried about the consequences of a democratic takeover of the Congress.
Yeah, hold on a moment because we got to take a break. After the break, we will be right back. Welcome back to Mainstream with Harpreet Singh Toor once again, and let's have Charlie back. Yeah, Charlie, so continue with that, but also there is another question which I would like you to answer, after that. One is, of course, what ultimately are the gains, if anybody is going to have any gains, except Iran. Right now, I see Iran gaining more than anybody else.
I agree. Strategically, this was an utter disaster, in my opinion. It's very hard for me just trying to comprehend it. Because, the old saying, if you're in a hole, stop digging, and they won't stop digging. And there's no having been alive when the hostage crisis happened in 1979. And so what Iran did then and how they undermined Carter's administration and the result of Reagan coming into power because of that. And Reagan, not officially, worked out a deal with Iran. And, it ushered in the period of time that we have now of Republican dominance over politics in the United States. Because I feel that ever since the 70s, the Republicans have been defining the Democratic Party. And, hopefully this might be a break from that, what's going on, but that remains to be seen. How much of a groundswell there is for the Democratic Party come this November.
My question will be, even if there is a groundswell, number one, would Trump let the voting take place the way? If he loses, what makes somebody think that he will not call up his goons like January 6th, start some, fight somewhere and declare martial law?
Well, let me just tie up our point from before. I think, in terms of the strategic disaster of the Iran conflict right now, other than withdrawing with nothing, empty-handed, I don't see any other options that are in front of us. Now, I'm not a military person. I don't have any inside information. I'm just observing and reading, and it doesn't seem like there are very many options. And obviously, he doesn't want to come off as weak before the election to actually take that as the option of just withdrawing.
Well, maybe after the elections, Iran will offer an olive branch to Trump that, okay, I will let you have some respect instead of withdrawing as a defeated. I will let you withdraw at equal terms. That's a probability, right?
Yeah, it's a probability. I don't necessarily agree with that kind of a scenario. I'll tell you, the fundamental thing with Trump is that he called himself the king of debt. And why was that? Because he always wanted to have leverage over somebody. So his tactics have always been what leverage, how to create leverage over a situation so he can extract whatever he wants without
Well, that's what
having,
he did when he was a real estate developer in New York City. He
yeah,
honed his techniques and he took it to the White House, and that's what he's doing.
and that's what every blustery comment that he makes is that his idea is that he's trying to create some kind of leverage or a distraction to create leverage or a distraction so he can line his pockets. But getting back to the Iran question, I don't see them doing anything until they see what happens with the election, our election, and what happens and how he reacts to it. Because if he tries all the shenanigans that everybody's afraid he's capable of and could do, of trying to manipulate the election and tearing apart the country even further than right now it is, then why would Iran do anything?
Yeah.
What's that old saying? If your enemy is tearing itself apart, why not just sit there?
Yeah, but also at the same time, there is something which I will, even though people may not agree with it, but I will just try to make some sense out of it. 9/11 happened. Every American was for Bush. They did not care how he won the election. They did not care about what he was doing, but they were behind him. So by attacking Iran, all the Iranians, irrespective of their differences, they know that this regime is not something which we want, but right now they are like, okay, this is the existential threat of our, way of life, our civilization. Thanks to Trump, when he said that he will wipe out the civilization, now they just want to have Trump get out of their way so that they can make some sort of agreement and stuff like that.
Well, also, you have to include on that is that the Iranian government, I should say, the people in charge of the government right now do not care about how the population reacts as long as they maintain power. So we're talking about a very minor part of the population that couldn't care less about what happens to the rest of the population. And we also have something similar here, where I would say the Republican Party, that it's dominated by the MAGAs, is a very small minority of the population, and all they're interested is maintaining their power. And so if there is that's what I was saying earlier, if there's a groundswell against Trump and the Republican Party in November, you may see there may be a change. I don't know. It depends on how they perceive the situation and whether they feel like they have the opportunity to maintain their power. I mean, I think one of the things that we're contending with now is that Trump is such a lightning rod for attention that a lot of people here, and a lot of it is the media, because they focus on him and they don't focus on the collaborators and the enablers of him, which is the entire Republican Party.
Exactly. I know you have that. You don't have that much time left, but there is something I would like you to comment on that. That when Joe Biden was the president, put any channel they were talking about inflation. They were talking about that. That how hard it is for the people to buy the groceries. I don't see that anymore. How these tariffs are actually a tax on you and me, and nobody in the media talks about it. So I guess it is a sign of that how once you muzzle the media, get the media in line so that whatever you say, they will just say to the people, and the people, assuming they have short memories, they will just follow.
Well, the analogy I made about that I'd like to make about the media are they're like a bunch of kittens chasing after a red dot, laser dot, which Trump is controlling. So they just follow the red dot wherever it's pointed. They don't care about anything else. And you know that is, I mean, there was also a man named Upton Sinclair who many years ago said, "You can't depend on somebody understanding whose salary depends on not understanding." So you know,
I like that. I like that. You know, it's interesting that I'm going to add this thing that I read. Damn, I even don't remember. Around the 80s, 87, 88, there was an editorial in New York Times. One of the articles in New York Times, you know those editorials where they write down, columnist, one of the column, maybe the column or the editor, where they said that a bad manager will hire the bad people so that he can look good. And this is what I'm seeing here with the Trump.
oh yeah, exactly. He doesn't want competence. He wants allegiance.
Yeah, kiss the ring and do whatever you want to do.
Right.
Right? Okay, one more question, just real quick before you go. Any predictions about November so far?
Well, I'm hoping that it's really overwhelming. I mean, that's the way everything is happening. But you know, there's a lot of fear that they're trying to generate. I mean, you have to look at what they're doing, not necessarily what they're saying, and you know, and why what's behind their tactics. So they're trying to create fear over people not their ballots won't count by the saying that the mailing the post office will not deliver their mail or deliver ballots to people to vote. And what's the point? The point is that they're trying to scare people, and trying to disrupt people.
Yeah,
But
then
and that's really what's going to happen is that you have to make sure that people are paying, and you have to break through that and make sure that people are really seeing what the purpose is, which is to deny your vote, and that means that you have to take action to vote.
Yeah, so it is basically steal the elections whichever way you can, and the people probably have to do, if they have requested mail-in ballot, it doesn't arrive, then they need to be so much determined that they will go and stand in line, even if they have to stand for 2-3 hours to vote, so that they can have a proper investigations and answers for the corruption which is going on in this current administration. Thank you, Charlie. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming. And probably in a week or so, I would like you to come to the studio and then we will talk about it. Thanks.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Let's take a break, and after the break, I will be right back. Welcome back to Mainstream with Harpreet Singh Toor. I really wish I had more time with the, Charlie Zelban about talking about some more issues, but the time is time. Okay, now coming to the other issues. Let's talk about what is happening between US and Canada and the elections which are going to take place here in the United States. Canada and US was about to sign an agreement, because of the tariffs, which Trump has been, from day one, he has been, even though he lost in the court, but for him, tariff is the only way. And nobody's actually now asking them, when they pass that bill, one big beautiful bill with the tax breaks to billionaire and trillionaires, and giving crumbs to the crumbs, not scrums, sorry, crumbs to people like you and me. The income from tariff was part of income. The Trump administration lost the case. They cannot claim the tariffs. Tariffs got cancelled. So money which was supposed to balance is not there. So where the money is coming from? Borrowing more. U.S. actually this week hit $40 trillion loan limit. And not only that, right now U.S. is paying $1 trillion a year as an interest. And they have been always targeting the Republicans, the medical, like Medicare and Social Security. And they actually want to kill both. Why? Because they want to give money to their billionaire friends who fund their elections and stuff like that. You and I, if we get advance information about any share movement and we trade the shares, we end up behind the bars. If you are a U.S. representative in Congress or Senate, or you are part of the Trump administration, you get the money. You sign in paying actually I think $100,000 to Trump media, you get advance payment notice of what the Trump is going to say, because he knows that based on what I say, the stocks move. So they get information in advance, so they either buy the shares or sell the shares based on that. Once that statement comes out, those people who got the crumbs, they end up buying those shares or selling those shares and losing money 90% of the times, maybe 10% out of them may gain something. And so I honestly never ever dreamed of that the corruption will be so rampant in United States, because there were checks and balances. We had the executive branch, we have the legislative branch, which was Congress and Senate, and then we have the courts. Okay? Executive branch is Trump, we know what he's doing. Congress, they are just putting a rubber stamp on whatever he does. So that's what we know is doing. The courts, the Justice Department, they are also rubber stamping now whatever is coming out. There is rarely a win. Like in Tariff's case, Trump was not happy. He posted the things. The justices got threatened. So instead of telling his goons to not to threaten the justices because they are doing what they are supposed to do, he just sat back. And guess what? Some of the justices just fell in line, and some of them, they were already on board with him. So, for example, the latest mail-in ballot executive order. Supreme Court said, well, we cannot take an action on something which even did not happen. So, that actually reminds me, this is actually what happened. After 9/11, I think it was 14th of September, maybe 15th, but not beyond that. And there was a gentleman, a Sikh gentleman, who got attacked with a box cutter blade by two people. He had the cut on the neck, under the arm, on the stomach, on the arm, and ambulance took him to the hospital escorted by the cops. So I was reaching out to different media about it to cover it, so that why we are turning against each other, especially against the Sikhs. because the people who actually lived in the United States or who were citizens of the United States, none of them was involved in that. Yeah, those people who were involved, they were Muslims. But then again, Timothy McVeigh was a Christian who attacked, federal building and killed more than 190 people in one attack in, Kansas City. So while I was talking to this one of the person on NBC, she said to me, when did it happen, and I told her that okay, it happened yesterday, it was in the evening, and she said to me, well, it's a stale news. For those who don't understand what stale news is, a news which is more than a couple of hours old becomes then stale news, because the news channels thrive on breaking news. Okay, now they thrive on what the Trump administration hands them over out to them. So she was about to hang up, and I said, can I say something before you hang up? She said, sure. I said, so you are actually waiting that somebody must get killed because of this insanity, and once that person is dead, then you want to have it as a breaking news so that you can say that, oh, we are covering what is happening and we are in the forefront to cover the communities. And I can hear that deafening silence on the other side. And she said, give me a few minutes. I said, sure. And honestly, when I hanged up, I thought that's end of story. Nothing is going to come. She's not going to call me back. Guess what? Within a minute, she called me back. And she asked me to give her the address and the location where they can meet the person. I said, sure. So we met at the person's home, which was on 104th Street at the border of Richmond Hill, Ozone Park. So they saw the turban full of blood, the shirt, the undershirt, and all those bandages and everything. And guess what? On the prime news from 6 to 6:30, it was a minute and a half, maybe a bit longer than that news. So what I'm trying to say here is, when justices, the Chief Justice gave this order that nothing has been done yet, so he is waiting something to happen, which means what? Let the Trump and Republicans take control of everything, and then you come to us. Then we will say it's already done, there is nothing we can do. It's like, when before the West Bengal election, when SIR was being done there, where whatever that stands for over there, they did voter verifications. They literally kicked out 2.7 million voters. And when they went to the Supreme Court of India, the answer was, they can vote next time. And in the meantime, what happened? They could not vote, BJP came to power, and that was the whole idea, to get the BJP into power. And same thing, I do similarities here, that how there could be similarities. Same thing in the media. In India, the media has been taken over directly and indirectly by the government. Over here also, media has been taken over directly or indirectly by the government. The only bright spot in this whole thing is that ABC has gone to Supreme Court against the administration, which is really a bright spot out of this whole thing. Why? Because one of their program got challenged, and they decided to, before Trump does anything, because Trump was planning to cancel some of their licenses to run that TV channel in certain neighborhoods. So they went to the court, and I'm waiting for the court to see what the court would say. I'm keeping my fingers crossed if the court will provide any justice. But then again, yeah, I'm going to talk about it, after the break on this thing, because it is very important what I'm going to say in this final segment, that what are our responsibilities as a citizens, as a parents, or as the kids towards our parents, or as a parents toward our kids and our families, and what we should do. Let's take a break. After the break, I will be right back. Welcome back to Mainstream. So, what I'm trying to say here, what I'm trying to talk about here, which I generally do, okay, we do have these rights under the Bill of Rights, which is freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom of faith, freedom of assembly. You want to do demonstration, you really don't need to do much. You just go to local precinct and let them know. And if you need some areas protected by the cops, then it's a different procedure. But if you're just going to do one-on-one on the sidewalk or somewhere, you really don't have to do much, except if you want some police protection, then let them know, the local community, the precinct, else you can on your own, you can put on something, a board on around your neck, and you can go around and demonstrate about it. Okay. Now, if we want these rights to stay the way they are, number one, our community is more mobile than other communities, which means our community members are buying the houses in a comparatively more numbers than the others. So, they move from one city to another city. Our community is buying the businesses. So, they move from one state to another state, or one part of the state to the other part of the state. But they forget one thing they don't do at all, or they don't pay attention at all, which is either registering to vote, and if they are registered, then to move their vote where they are living now. That is as much important as registering your vote. The reason basically is, if you don't vote, you are invisible, number one. Number two, under the current circumstances, what is happening here, if you don't agree, how you are going to show your disagreement? I always say that when somebody wins the election, they say that party A or party B got majority, but I always say, okay, it's a minority which is ruling the majority. Why? Because let's say 65% people voted, which is rare. Okay, so 35% did not vote at all to begin with. Now, out of 65, somebody got 33%, the other one 32, so 33% won. So now that 33% is actually ruling on the rest of the 67% people, including 33%. So that's how I look at it. So you do not want to be statistically at that point. I was having a conversation, actually not me, it was one of the local elected council person who was having the conversation about, one of the young kid who said, oh, our community is being ignored, da, 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 da. And I appreciate the honesty of the elected person, because this kid was told by this elected person that I was told to ignore this community because they do not come out and vote. And I'm still doing much more than what anybody else has done so far, which is true. So it is coming from an elected person about assessment on our community. So for me, it is very important when I look at it that that perception should be changed, and it can be changed if and only if we come out and vote in numbers. Numerically, we have to come out. Numerically, we got to vote. If we don't, then we are losing a lot, not just funding wise, but otherwise also, because it is so important. It is so important that whatever funding is coming to the communities, of whatever is left over out of those crumbs for the communities, I want that share for our community, because we pay probably more taxes than the others when it comes down to that. And if we do that, then the life of people like me who are in public life and some of the people who are running for elections, for them, it makes life easy, makes life better. So, and having said that, now because the elections are around the corner, there are a few things which we need to look at. One of them is, how in the red states the voting is going to be. The pattern of the people's thinking is changing, but would it change that much? In the agricultural states, the issue is about the fertilizer and the gas. And it happened after Iran war, because the gas prices went through the roof, the fertilizer prices went through the roof. And it is not just the American farmers, it is the farmers all over the world who are suffering with it. The gas supply, liquefied natural gas, that is also not being supplied properly. There is a rationing in certain parts of the world for that. In certain states where they are more dependent on transportation and other means of life, the gas is expensive. Trucking industry is under pressure because the diesel is expensive. The farmers in California and other states where they grow up, the fruits and berries, tomatoes, cauliflowers, you name it, basically any vegetable we put on the table, they don't have the labor. Why? Because that dirty work is not being done by locals, and immigrants who do it, they are being hounded by the ICE, and they are either being detained in the facilities where they don't have even the proper water to drink, or they are being sent to the nations where those nations are taking them in just because they are getting dollars, and their governments are using their dollars to either be rich themselves or make their population a bit happy so that they can extend their rule over the population. And the other thing which is very interesting, which I'm going to touch before I go, Secretary of Treasury Besant yesterday made an announcement where he said that certain countries who are going to do business with Iran, if they don't mend their acts, they will not be allowed to do business in dollars. I'm pretty sure if I have been looking at certain things happening, he must be looking at it more seriously because he's a professional. He spent his whole life in that field. That there are already countries who are looking to break away from dollar dominance. Russia, China, even India to one point was about to till Trump threatened the current Indian government with sanctions and stuff like that, and they did not proceed. So that may happen anyway. But there is another factor which we should not forget, which I was discussing with the guest today, that it doesn't matter how much we agree or disagree with what is happening in Iran with the Iranian regimes, but about Iranian regime, but they will not talk about Saudi Arabia, they will not talk about Kuwait, they will not talk about some other nations which are their friends, where they are actually doing even more to control their population. In Iran, at least the females are allowed to go out. Yeah, they have this something where they are like, oh, you cannot walk around with your head not covered, but at least they can walk around with their faces, people where they can see their face, they can talk to the people, they can talk to their friends on the corners of the street, which in other Middle Eastern countries which are friendly with United States, they cannot even do it. They even cannot think about doing it. Forget about doing it. Nobody will talk about that. And also, the Republicans, where I am really upset about, is that nobody really have the guts to stand up, to have the right. The party which always said that we are the party, we are going to protect your rights, we want the local people, local governments to have more rights, we want the individuals have more rights. Their rights are being taken away one at a time. Whether those are right of speaking, whether those are right to your health, whether those are rights to education. By attacking institutions, each institution is being attacked by the current government so that they can control all this. So this is a wake-up call for this coming up election. Let us wake up, go out and do our part of the job, either by mail, if not by mail, if it doesn't happen by mail, and if you suspect it may not happen by mail, then go to the voting pool and vote. With that note, till next time, good night and good luck.